Merry Rabbit, Rabbit, Rabbit! Happy holidays, everybody. Time for highlights from the Old Farmer's Almanac and the story of the month. This month in the Almanac, on the 4th, it is the full cold moon. On the 6th, it is St. Nicholas Day. On the 13th, it is St. Lucia's feast day. Oh, it is also actor Dick Van Dyke's 100th birthday. On the 15th, beware the Pagonip. Oh, and the 17th, the 19th, and the 20th, those are Amber Days. Of course, the 25th is Christmas, the 26th is the Feast of St. Stephen, and December 31 is Make Up Your Mind Day. I have made up my mind to share with you for the story of the month, the Manger Scene. Here you go.
I suppose the best Christmas present I remember was not one that I received, but one that my sister and I gave. Now, officially, the Christmas shopping season starts the day after Thanksgiving. But when I was a kid, the catalog from the Sears and Roebuck company, the Christmas Wish Book, came to your house about mid-October, was always wrapped in brown paper, and my mom would take it from the stack of mail and put it up on a high shelf, and we were not allowed to touch that catalog until Thanksgiving Day. Thanksgiving was always a great event at my house. The cooking started early in the morning, and we were entertained by watching the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade from New York City on the television. We liked to play Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. My sister would get a blanket, and she would sit on the couch and spread the blanket all around her lap. That was her big fancy dress. And then she would put on a hat and gloves and a scarf, and she would sit there on the couch and pretend she was waving to people as she rode on a float. And I would pretend to be a drum major in one of the bands. I had a Darth Vader costume left over from Halloween, and I would take the cape from that and tie it around my neck. And I'd get the broom from the broom closet, and I would march around the living room. Dun, 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 dun. It was always great. And then, of course, at the end of the parade, Santa Claus came down the street, and all the crowd on television would cheer and clap, and you knew Christmas was not far away. And then we would start wandering into the kitchen saying, "Is it time to eat yet? Is the turkey done yet?" My mom would have to shoo us out of the kitchen, and that's when she would get down the Sears and Roebuck Wish Book. She knew we would sit on the couch for the next hour and a half poring over that wish book, and that would keep us out of the kitchen and out of her hair. When she gave us the Sears and Roebuck Wish Book, we would sit there side by side on the couch, my sister and I, and we would play that classic game of want that, don't want that. Want that, don't want that. Want that, don't want that. Want that. And after we had done that for a good while, then my mom would give us a permanent black magic marker. And she would tell us to go through the Sears and Roebuck Wish Book and circle 3 things that we wanted for Christmas. She knew that if we made our final decisions on Thanksgiving Day, she could call the order in the very next day, and the packages would arrive just in time for Christmas Eve. Oh, man, those were hard decisions to make. Want that. And after long soul-searching and deliberation, we would narrow it down and circle 3 things from the Sears and Roebuck Wish Book. It never occurred to me or my sister that parents often pore over the Sears and Roebuck Wish Book too. One day I was walking through the living room, and my mom was sitting on the couch, and she was looking at the Christmas catalog with a great big magnifying glass. My mom is legally blind, which I always thought was the strangest term, legally blind, like it's against the law to have good eyesight or something. She can see, she has vision enough to see large black print, like in a big print family Bible and that kind of thing, but all that little fine print in the Sears catalog was very difficult for her to read, And if the pictures weren't real clear, she might not be able to see those either. So she would sit on the couch with the reading lamp close for good bright light and use her big magnifying glass to study pages in the catalog. And she was looking at all of these different manger scenes that were pictured on a double-page spread. Now, we had a manger scene. Oh, the figures were about 4 or 5 inches high, I suppose. My dad set it up on a bookshelf that had been wrapped with corrugated cardboard paper that had a print on it that looked like bricks. He would turn that little bookshelf into a pretend fireplace every Christmas and then set the manger scene on the top. There was the Holy Family and the shepherds and the wise men, a little stable and some sheep. But my mom, with her poor vision, she really couldn't see the detail in those manger scene figures. And she was looking at that page of manger scenes in the book, and there were all kinds of them. There were some made of crystal and some made of porcelain and some that were painted beautiful colors and others that were all white. And she said, "Oh, I wish I could get one of these really big ones so that I could see it." Well, that following day, on Friday, we went to town to trade. And we went to Mac's grocery store, and in the back of Mac's grocery store, there was a Ben Franklin store. It was a department store that had craft items and toys and games and lawn furniture and water hoses and all that kind of stuff. And we rounded a corner, and right there on the end of a shelf was the biggest manger scene my sister and I had ever seen. It was huge. You've seen those kind of manger scenes. You know, the figures are about 3 feet high, and they're made of hard plastic, and they have light bulbs screwed into the back of each figure, and you run a big long extension cord through your yard and plug it all up, and then you have this big glowing manger scene out by the highway. My sister took one look at that and jammed me with her elbow, and she said, "Look at that. Mama could see that." We looked at the price tag. As I remember, it was about $59.95 just for Mary and Joseph, the baby Jesus, and a plastic manger to lay him in. Might as well been $5,995. $59.95 was an awful lot of money to us. But my sister said, "Let's make it a surprise. Let's get that for Mom for Christmas." So we hauled that thing off the shelf, and we carried it to a little window at the back of the store where we met a lady who had a pad of paper and a pen. She was wearing little half glasses with a chain. She was the layaway lady. And we put that manger scene on layaway. Now, technically, for layaway, I think you were probably supposed to have 10% as a down payment. I think between us, we had about $2.39. But the lady was very nice, and she said, "I'm going to write that on this pad of paper with your names, $2.39. That's your down payment, and we'll keep track of how much you have to go, and you can come and put a payment on the manger scene anytime you want to." The layaway lady at the Ben Franklin department store in the back of Mac's Grocery did us a great favor. She did not discount that manger scene 1 penny. She had us earn every last red cent and pay for it with our own money. And that was a good thing. And we got an allowance each week, and so we had already decided we would put all of our allowance toward the manger scene, but that wasn't going to make up nearly enough money to pay off the debt of $59.95 plus tax. And so my sister decided that she was going to skip lunch at school, and she would save her lunch money, and she could put that on the manger scene. I was not going to skip lunch at school. But then one night, I went down to the milk shed to milk our goat. My daddy bought me a milk goat because he thought it would build character. We never drank the milk. We usually poured it out. But I had to milk the goat morning and evening because that built character. And I'd gone down to the milk shed to milk the goat. And when I walked into the barn, I looked over into the feed trough, and there was a huge rat. Oh, goodness, it must have been 1.5 feet long. And it slithered up out the top of the feed box and crawled down on the floor and ran through a hole in the wall. Ugh. And standing there in the middle of the December cold that evening, I could see my breath blowing out. I looked at that feed box and saw where that rat had been. And it suddenly occurred to me that that's where Mary had laid her baby when he was born in a barn she had laid him in the feed box where the rats crawled. And when I came to understand exactly how low the Lord had stooped for me, I could feel hot tears running down my cold cheeks there in the goat shed. And I decided that I could probably do without lunch and put my lunch money on our laid-away Manger Scene at Ben Franklin Department Store. We had gone to town to trade just a few days before Christmas, and we ran to the back of the store, and we pulled out all kinds of wadded up, noodled up dollar bills and $5 bills and nickels and pennies and dimes and quarters, and the kind lady with the half glasses and the chain very slowly and meticulously and patiently counted out all of that money, and she said, "Look there, you've got it right down to the last penny. And I've already wrapped it up for you. It was in this great big giant box, had all this brown paper around it so you couldn't see what was inside. And my sister and I, we lugged that thing to the front of the store. And my dad pulled our Ford Pinto station wagon around to pick up all the groceries that he and Mama had bought while we were in the back of the store at the layaway. He loaded all the sacks into the back of the Ford Pinto station wagon. And then we said, and this is ours. We got this. We had to put the back seat down to get it into the car. We were so excited we could hardly stand ourselves. And we all got back into the car, and my mom said, "What have you children done?" And we said, "This is for you. This is a surprise for you." We couldn't even wait until we got home. We said, open it right now. And she reached around from the front seat, stretched her arm way out to the back, and she took just a corner of that brown paper and peeled it off. And when the paper ripped off the side of the box, you could see pictured there Mary and Joseph and the baby Jesus in his plastic manger. And she started to cry. And she said, "Ooh, I can see that. Oh, I can see that just fine." And so a family tradition was started. Every Christmas season, come first Sunday of December, my dad gets up in the attic and he pulls down Mary and Joseph and the baby Jesus in the plastic manger, and Mom and Dad set them up in the front yard. That was a long time ago. I was probably about 10 years old when we bought that, and I'm 42 now. So Mary and Joseph, they've been out there in the front yard every December, rain, sleet, or snow, for, goodness, over 30 years. If there was a heavy snow, my mama would give me the broom, say, "Go out there and sweep off the baby Jesus. He looks cold." Now, they're kind of faded. So a few years ago, my dad repainted all the figures, and Joseph's coat is now kind of a pukey purple color. And poor old Mary, he painted her, and now she's so dark it looks like somebody gave her a gift certificate to Tiny Joe's Tanning Salon for Christmas. And then the baby Jesus, he has a short in his light bulb, so sometimes he's the light of the world, and sometimes he's not, and then he's the light of the world, and then he's not. But that's my mama's favorite Christmas decoration. And I suppose that's the way it should be. Because after all, that's what Christmas is all about. Jesus came to earth for those of us who are blind. He sacrificed himself so that we might see.